Welcome to the HR Champions podcast with me, Phil Scott of HR Recruit, where I bring you leaders from the HR community. In our podcast, we'll be discussing their careers to date, their passion for HR, and the challenges they faced along the way. Today, I'm delighted to introduce Michael Rabone, Head of Human Resources at the Stein Group. Stein Group we're recognised as one of the top 100 best places to work pre-lockdown, and I'm excited to hear how they've handled the pandemic. Being in hospitality, it's not been easy for them, and we're going to explore that in today's show. So, Michael, my introduction does it no justice whatsoever, so would you like to give the listeners a quick introduction to who you are?
Thank you, Phil. My name's Michael Rabone. I'm Head of Human Resources for the Stein Group, as Phil mentioned. I've been working for the group for nearly 14 years. We've grown fourfold in that time, so we're now an employer of 600, running restaurants, retail shops, guest accommodation sites in Cornwall and the south of England.
So let's just talk about you and your career. How did you first get into HR?
Well, I nearly made a really bad decision, Phil. I went off to university having really enjoyed business studies at A-level, and I chose an IT degree. It was a disaster. I think after about a month or so, I quickly came to the conclusion that I'd made a really poor choice, and it absolutely wasn't the career for me. I have to say, if it wasn't for the intervention of a chap that I now obviously credit for having a big stake in helping me achieve the career that I've had, I'm not sure I probably would have stayed at university in truth. So I actually switched to a human resources management degree with his guidance, and just literally didn't look back. I went off and did a placement year. That really grounded me in terms of the context of my studies, and then quickly got a job through a graduate recruitment scheme, which I guess, unfortunately, few and far between these days. But I was given a great opportunity to work for a big retail firm that really set me up in terms of my future career. So a lucky break, I would say, but it's hard to think now actually what I would be doing, how I would be doing things if I hadn't have made that choice at that time. So a really significant intervention for me. Great.
And what is it you like about working in human resources?
I think I like a challenge, Phil. So I've definitely chosen the right career. I think it's there's a nice bit of predictability and unpredictability about the job that I have, and I'm really curious about what makes people tick, what drives people to improve, to better themselves from a professional point of view. But I'm also incredibly mindful of the things that we know can hold us back in terms of our well-being, our circumstances, the challenges that we encounter throughout our career. So I hope I've learned a nice balance there in terms of understanding individual circumstances that then allows us to remember the people part of the 600 people that we employ, but equally then to find a balance in the way that we run and operate our business.
Good. And how would you say your career's progressed so far? What's been the secret?
I would say a fair chunk of good fortune, Phil, and being in the right place at the right time. I have to be honest. I mean, I've been so incredibly lucky over the years. It is, on reflection, it's very strange to think that I've had 3 jobs since my teenage years. So I've been able to stick it out in the roles that I've been in. It feels like it's gone very fast over that period of time, but I think loyalty is a really big factor for me. Is the opportunity to learn, the opportunity to be given a chance, and I recognise that people have taken a punt on me. They obviously saw some potential. I acknowledge that much, but I've had people who have invested in me and my career and put that faith in me, perhaps as a slightly untried and tested HR professional at a young age, to give me those opportunities, to give me that exposure to go and succeed. And I owe those individuals a massive debt of gratitude, because without that, I just simply wouldn't have had the opportunity to learn and grow in the way that I have done over the last 20 years.
Good. And have there been any particular standout achievements that have stood you in good stead?
Well, I suppose I have to acknowledge that to achieve top 100 status recently was a massive achievement for us on a collective basis. But I hope it's fair to say I've had a relatively unspectacular career, and by that I mean that just wanted to try and do the simple things really well. Just wanted to demonstrate real care for the people that work for the business, to create the right culture. And I know it probably sounds simplistic in a way, but we know how valuable that is for engagement and making sure that people feel looked after, and then the benefits to our business and our customers when we get that bit right. And it's something that I've been incredibly proud of over the years, that the places that I've worked, I'd say we've had a very strong relationship as a team, as a business, And that's just stood us in such good stead then to go on and improve. So when I say unspectacular, I hope it makes sense that I don't think we've done anything particularly outstanding or unique. It's just that we've done things in the right way and carefully listened to and understood our people and used that as a basis for driving improvement, which we know, obviously, when things stagnate and they go still, that it makes things so much more difficult. And just love the fact that we've wanted to keep improving our business and keep listening. And we do it so well with customers all the time. We're always listening to customer feedback, but it takes something a little bit extra to do that with the team. And I'm glad that we've made the effort in that area, because it's yielded such great rewards for all of us to improve our business.
And have you, within HR, stuck to sort of your basic responsibilities, or do you get involved with wider business initiatives?
I think I've learned to improve that, Phil. I would say it's an area that I've needed to work on, and I think spending time in the business has been a great advantage to keep us grounded in the context of what we do, seeing our customers' feedback every single day, and reading what our business means to them, where we get it right, where we get it wrong, and actually understanding that feedback to help us go on and drive improvements is critical. And equally, I do like to share an idea or two, sometimes a little bit wayward, but I like the thought of contributing to the way we improve our business. So all of those three things married together, I think, have helped me deliver a broader role as a HR professional. And I've still got more to do on that front. I recognise that I can contribute more and in a different way. And I think particularly over the last 12 months, as our business has changed because of obvious reasons and the size of our team has reduced, I've got the opportunity to do more of that into 2021.
Okay, and onto the Rick Stein Group. We mentioned in the intro it was recognised for being one of the top 100 companies to work for. What makes it special?
I think the thing I love about our business, there's just something so precious about having that family business culture and our ability to adapt and our ability to understand our people, understand our customers, and to find ways to better what we do. I just think that's such a lovely thing to be involved in a family culture where improvement is at the heart, and it always has been. It's a 45-year-old business that's remained in family hands, and it just shows. I think it's such a positive characteristic for us, and I love the fact that we're never quite satisfied that we've got it perfectly right. We're always looking at ways to just make small improvements and tweaks to just better our business for our people and our customers. And I think that that's something that we can be incredibly proud of. It takes time, it takes effort. We have to dedicate time to make that happen. But we've got the balance right. And I think that was reflected then in some of the feedback that we got from our team when we surveyed for the top 100 companies.
Great. And we talked about on a sort of previous conversation, sort of January, February, you're forecasting and looking at 2020 with pandemic not really sort of known other than on the news from China. So what was the outlook for the business, at the beginning of the year?
I mean, it just seems a strange time now to think back to, without any knowledge at all of what was about to follow. We'd had a really good 12 months up until that period and had been working on improving our business and had results. I mean, I think we were finding that we were making progress with engagement, we were making progress with our customer feedback scores, we were making progress with sales and profits, and it was a very healthy relationship. And we'd got the news in December that we'd made the top 100 list, and the celebration event was in the February, and obviously we couldn't share that until the celebration event was over. So to get to February and to have this scenario where we were able to look back on a really successful year or so where we'd made such massive improvement to the way we do things and the way we listen and the way we improve our business, and then to suddenly find that we were getting into early March. And it's a tough time of year for us as a company. We're a very seasonal business with having a lot of sites in Cornwall. Our footfall reduces quite substantially over the autumn and winter period. So we knew it's always been a consideration for us that cash flow would be a challenge around that winter time. So we've always been very, very careful with that and had to manage it in the best possible way. And to then start having conversations, and I'll never forget it. It will stick with me. The feeling of being able to, or having to sit down and start contemplating that there was this little message out there that this could be a much bigger issue than perhaps is being suggested. So we had a brief conversation and decided that contingency planning was critical, and we had to take it seriously. And it just, the pace that things escalated at, I think will always stick with me, because we were literally at a stage where we were sat having conversations saying, well, what can we do? And you might remember that, you know, this was around the time when there was this message about singing happy birthday twice. And, you know, perhaps the significance, the severity of this perhaps wasn't quite known. And therefore, to then be in a position where what felt like literally a matter of days from things being fine, looking optimistic, looking forward to the year ahead, to then being in a position where we were having to close our doors. It was an enforced closure for our sector, as you know. And the sad reality was, I think at that stage, with no certainty that we'd reopen them again. And the reason being that cash flow, unpredictable few months, not knowing how long lockdown would last for, what the consequences for our sector would be. We had a very real proposition that our business could find itself in a very difficult situation. So we then understood that having to react, communicate, our team looked to us for guidance and leadership at such a difficult time. We knew that we had to do it right. We had to be really thorough, and we had to work damn hard to make sure that we could fight for the survival of this company. And that was an incredibly daunting time.
So I suppose, I mean, you're going from all, you know, closing the doors, staring zero revenue in the face, and also spring and summer being a seasonal business is, you know, is where you make the money. And you know, what contingency plans, you know, what came about, what you know, what sort of ideas were there?
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things we knew we'd built our business on was conversations about ideas and improvement, and we didn't see that that had to stop. I mean, obviously, being in a crisis was worrying. It was a very difficult backdrop to be working in. It was absolutely opposite to everything we know in terms of having our doors open, being welcoming and engaging with people. It just literally stopped overnight. So from our point of view, we immediately went back to what we know best, which was to engage in conversation, to talk openly about our circumstances, to be transparent with our team about where we are and what needed to happen next. And part of that conversation was so valuable that we opened up discussion about ideas and improvement. And it perhaps, you know, in a way, probably feels like a very strange conversation to be having when faced with a crisis. But we just felt it was so valuable to engage with our people and understand what they saw as a way through this just as much as we did. And the ideas that generated, I can remember just being completely blown away, seeing, I think it was probably about the best part of 200 contributions from across our business, that a whole range of things about what we could do better to engage with our customers. Because I mean, if you take as an example, we could obviously trade with a takeaway restaurant, but we don't really, other than fish and chip restaurants, operate takeaways. So we'd be talking about having to convert our model, about having to change our approach. But there was one thing that really stood out to us, and that was obviously whilst in lockdown, the inability to visit a restaurant, the demand for quality food. The Stein's at home concept came about, which was a 3-course meal. It was a Rick recipe, a Rick Stein meal for 2 delivered to your door. And that emerged from conversations in consultation with our team. And we just ran with it. And I've never seen us work at that kind of pace before, Phil. It just wasn't our style, perhaps, to take something, run with it, and launch it quickly. But to have started with very humble expectations. We thought we might sell perhaps 50 boxes, Stein's at home boxes a week. We've peaked at 1,700 in recent times. So just an absolutely staggering contribution from our team to say, right, how do we shift our model? How do we adapt our approach, knowing that our doors may not be open for months to come? And it just, the potential that model gives us is so substantial. Because if you can imagine, it's created employment, which is, I guess, critical at a difficult time. It's created career opportunities for people to step up into bigger roles. And then we've been in a position where we can start to look ahead at what sales might do for the next year. And we're confident it's actually going to start to erode our seasonality and give us an alternative model away from our traditional restaurants that will help just reduce the impact of that seasonality on our business. and obviously giving customers what they want. I mean, we're in the business of doing that, and the feedback that we've had has been amazing. And where we've got it wrong, we'll learn lessons and make improvements and keep that feedback flowing. And it's just been so exciting and interesting to see us take something, run with it, not be too afraid, in terms of we will make mistakes, we will get it wrong, and we will have to listen and improve, but to feel confident that we've got the right thing there. So yeah, what an absolutely staggering contribution to go, I would say, to contribute to a change in fortunes for our business.
I suppose then you've got almost two revenue streams or two models now going forward. So you've got the restaurant side, and then the sort of the is it menu in a box? Is that yeah. And I mean, we've had two lockdowns. So lockdown one in the spring. How's the summer been in between? Is that with sort of staycations? Has that helped at all, or?
Been so significant. We've been incredibly lucky to have the summer that we've had. Obviously, Cornwall has been in a position where the case count has been low. I mean, obviously, it was a worrying time. I mean, we were opening our doors in July, a completely unknown quantity in terms of the potential risks. And from the outset, we just knew that we had to run a safe business for our customers and for our people to return to work. So not an easy thing to do, I guess. 3.5 months of closure, having to find ourselves in a position to effectively start from scratch, reopen our doors. But we had faith, and I think we believed that, well, we had to have faith in the fact that we would reopen on the 4th of July, that Cornwall would be considered a popular destination for visits. Like you said, travel abroad wasn't really a great option at that stage, even if it's probably not now as well. And to have then the faith that we could get into a position where we could reopen those doors safely, confidently, doing the right things for our customers, the right things for our people, it took some planning. We had I mean, if you can imagine, the 3 months running up to that was quite a sensitive time. We were in consultation for a relatively small number of redundancies. Unfortunately, 30 colleagues across the business were made redundant. And that was a very difficult patch for us, and we certainly didn't want to be there. It was absolutely no choice of ours, but we knew that survival of the business was a challenge. And have to say, for our colleagues, that for the way in which they handled that, it was unbelievable the way they understood and went about contributing ideas and improvements, even if faced with difficulties themselves. So it's been a real test of the relationship, and I've been so conscious of that. And there was a very small team of us working on those improvements over those closed months whilst everybody was on furlough. And the main aim was just to get our doors back open and to get back to doing what we do best, and that is looking after people, whether it's our customers or our team. And we've had an exceptional summer. Our people have worked incredibly hard. It's been a tough time. It's not been easy, and even the basic premise of having to wear a face mask in the course of doing your job is certainly not an easy thing in a warm kitchen environment with a lot of activity going on. So it's been a challenging time, but it's been an equally important time for us as we've gradually recovered from the difficult position that we found ourselves in. And as I said, there's no escaping the fact that we have sadly tested employee relationships, we've tested supplier relationships whilst we've been through a tough time. But with a sensible plan and a carefully managed approach, we've been able to get our business back on track. And the summer has proven incredibly important to our recovery. And that, coupled with our online shop business, the Stein's at Home product, we're starting now to see some really positive signs of recovery that show us that there's great potential for next year. But we've got to keep doing the right things, making good decisions, looking after people, looking after customers, getting back to doing what we do best. And I'm just really pleased now that we're looking forward. We're talking about ideas, we're talking about improvements, we're reflecting on what we've learned this year in terms of how we can approach next year. And I think confidence is returning, it's returned, and we're now in a position where we can look forward. And I have to say, after the year we've had, that's incredibly welcomed.
I'm going to say it must have been a very difficult period. How important would you say HR has been to the organisation through this period?
I'd like to think that after people amidst some very challenging circumstances. And I think the big difficulty has been the whole uncertainty and the emphasis on good communication, us sharing information about where we are, being transparent with our people about the difficult circumstances that we found ourselves in, and obviously trying to wade through the minefield that was the coronavirus job retention scheme and all the associated and ever-changing rules around it. And that was, I have to say, it's very strange looking back to that period of March, April time when things were in their infancy, really not knowing what the future would hold, but just loving the fact that everybody was so galvanized and sticking together and showing great faith in one another to say that however hard it had got, we were going to get through this, and that there was some optimism. And it just, I just think I'm proud of the work that we've put in as a HR team. We had a massive spike in recruitment activity to get ourselves back open again at the end of June, ready for the beginning of July, because quite a few people then left as the furlough scheme started to wind up at that point. So it was quite an intense period, but I think given the alternative, Phil, I think it was a welcome opportunity for us to show great care for the people who work hard to make our business what it is. And that's not difficult in a way. It was a few hours, there was a lot of work to do. There's been some difficult conversations at times, but just having that end in sight that we could deal with this, that we could get through this no matter what, was just motivational for me and us as a team to be able to go on and do whatever we needed to do to get those doors back open and to make people happy again. And I think we've accomplished that.
Right. Well, it's really good to hear that it's that you've done everything you can, and it's having the impact. So I'm going to bring it back onto you, Michael. We talked about sort of people that have inspired you early in your career, but give me 3 people who have been inspirational to you as an individual.
Okay, I think the one gentleman called Mike Lee, who was at Plymouth Business School where I went to university. Without his intervention, Phil, my career probably would have stalled, and I dread to think what I'd be doing now. So he was a massive influence to me, and somebody that I think I've repeatedly said thank you to a few too many times, but I do have really appreciated the difference that he made. And then two individuals, very different circumstances. A lady called Jane Camp, who was effectively my boss at Tesco, and gave me my first senior level appointment and showed a lot of faith in me as a 22-year-old, and probably an opportunity that in hindsight I may not have been ready for. But I learned a massive amount from Jane in terms of having faith in potential and giving opportunities to people and trusting them to go and do a good job. And obviously I had a few nudges back on the straight and narrow in terms of the mistakes that I made, and I guess, probably not as mature as I should have been at that age on reflection, but Jane gave me great opportunities, and I got moved a few times during that time, and it was the making of me. I think it really accelerated my career development. And then the final scenario, our current managing director, Ian Fitzgerald, I think in terms of my career, I've bounced around a little bit in terms of reporting lines, worked with different people, and probably had quite a hands-off relationship at times in that regard. So I would say it's been lovely to be trusted and wonderful to have the opportunity to go on and do my thing and focus on what I'm best at. But it's not all positive. I think it comes with some consequences, and I think then you have to be really disciplined about improving yourself and taking steps to focus on your development, bettering what you do as an individual, what we do as a team to contribute to the business. And I think that can be a little bit compromising when you don't have a manager who is so heavily involved or interested in your personal development, and there to probably give you a little bit of a nudge along the way. And Ian's been absolutely incredible at that for me in terms of helping me better myself, helping me look at ways I can improve individually, how I can improve what we contribute as a team. And I would say he's had a significant bearing on my recent career in terms of broadening my horizons and helping me. And Ian's not a HR professional, he's an experienced restaurant operator and director, and has been, but on a personal level, takes interest and has challenged me in the nicest possible way to go and achieve. And that, I think, when I look back at what we've done to better our business, the work we did with the top 100 list and so on, I think I owe him a significant gratitude for what he's done for me on a personal level.
So, apart from Ian, how else do you learn as an individual? What personal development do you do?
I think the most important things for me in recent years, Phil, has been that the trigger point has been to use 360-degree feedback to gather an understanding of how I'm perceived, both good and bad, if you like, opportunities to improve. And then I've had a couple of coaching relationships off the back of those 360s that I've done. Two very different relationships, actually. One a much kind of softer exploratory relationship to help me understand my feedback, how I'm going to work on it, and how I will better myself. And then latterly, perhaps more of an executive coaching type relationship where I would say I was challenged much harder about my thoughts, views, perceptions, how I go about doing my job, what I need to do to better my approach as a business leader and a HR professional. And I think it's not easy. It hasn't been easy, but I think it's only when you realise I should have been doing that. I had a gap where I didn't do that enough, and I think on reflection, I should never have got out of that habit, because it was so important that just to take that time to focus on me, to feel comfortable to say that actually, if it takes a little bit of investment in a coaching relationship and so on, then it's money worth spending. It's valuable. It feels very selfish in a way, but I needed to get past that and recognise that me being on top form is not just great for the business, it's also really important to me and my career and my well-being. And having found myself in perhaps the opposite position in one difficult scenario, I now value that more so than ever. And I think probably the key thing for me has been that is just feeling comfortable to recognise that you can't get everything right all the time, that even with good intentions you can make mistakes, and actually there's nothing more powerful than the humility of recognising when you get it wrong and reflecting on that and then learning. And I think that is where I've made the biggest inroads in recent times. And I feel a different person as a result of that, Phil. It's quite massive for me that and my well-being that I've got a much better control over that.
And you mentioned mistakes. Then is there any particular mistakes that you've made? If so, what advice would you have to others so you don't make the same mistakes?
Yeah. I have to be very honest with myself and say that I can remember having a chat with a guy. I went to a HR conference, and a very experienced chap who'd worked in HR for a number of years approached me, and we were talking about what we did, and he was asking how long I'd been in the role for. And I think I told him like 6 or 7 years, and he did a bit of a sharp intake of breath. And I thought, I don't understand what this means. But he was like, oh, you're at that stage then. And I couldn't recognize what he was referring to. He was talking about kind of like the 7-year itch thing, and getting to the point where you don't, is it a crossroads? What should you do? Have you been in the role too long? Are you bettering yourself, and so on? And I didn't really see it. I didn't really understand what he was referring to. And do you know what? It wasn't 7 years for me. It was about 10. It got to a stage where I think in hindsight now, I think I was struggling, and it was hard to accept at the time. I think having had so much momentum and made so much progress in my career and got involved in making things happen and improving, that I think I stopped, and I think I ended up maintaining the status quo and fell into some actually quite poor habits in terms of being a little bit closed and not as receptive as I should have been, not working on improvements for me or the team, and just getting on with the job, thinking, well, there is some repetition, and naturally there'll be some things that we do time and time again. But I think I got just too embroiled in that kind of stuff, Phil. And actually, I think you then realise I recognised that I was suffering. It took me a long time, I think, to acknowledge that. But I think the impact then on your well-being, your mental health, it's the drip effect, I think. And I found myself feeling a little bit uncomfortable. And then I was thinking about stuff a lot after work and couldn't focus, and a few nights where I didn't sleep too well, and starting to feel that pressure. And I didn't really see it at the time. I think it's only now when I look back and I realise the place that I was at, that I think actually my mental health I think I was struggling a bit. And the worst bit for me is I've always been so good at helping others, and I was absolutely rubbish at helping myself. And I didn't do something about it. I didn't talk to somebody. I didn't accept that, this is normal. It happens. These things go on, that you can't operate at 100% all the time. But I guess the sooner you then recognize that you're not in that place and go and deal with it, the better. And I don't think I did that particularly well, in truth. And it was only really with Ian, our managing director's support, that I think he played an important role in recognizing that in me. And that's a valuable trait from a leadership point of view, I think, is to help someone out of a hole. And I was in one. And it's sad, because on reflection, I went through a phase of feeling perhaps quite embarrassed about the fact that things went wrong for me, because it was the first time in my career I would say that I've ever encountered that. But actually, I think it was a really important stage for me. I think it was a really important thing to have experienced it, because I've seen other people go through it so many times, and I've played a role in helping other people, and actually it felt like a really lonely place to be for a period of time for me. And I had to do quite a bit of soul searching and to think again about what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. I'm very proud of the fact that I came through that, and I certainly don't want to get back there again. I can say that for sure. So lots of lessons learned, and I think if I could have my time again, I think I would have listened to the chap who was trying to give me some advice, to say there'll come a stage, if you remain in a role for a period of time, where the danger zone is there, the complacency can kick in, the maintaining the status quo is possible. And I should have read between the lines, Phil, I think, is the moral of the story, but I didn't, and I've learned some really important lessons from that. And I think it will keep me a bit sharper, I would say, in terms of my self-awareness, and also thinking about others as well. If I ever see somebody demonstrating some similar signals, then it's something I'll be very much able to relate to.
Great. I'm going to ask you to give me one common myth about HR that you'd like to dispel.
I think the thing that's probably bugged me over the years is that HR folk are the people who stop others from doing things. And I know that, I can get the point that there's going to be risk adversity and so on. And there'll always be a time when somebody has to have a view and say, well, we need to just be a bit considerate, a bit cautious about what we're thinking, what we're doing. But I really hope that the profession has moved on from being the kind of custodian of the risky stuff like employment relations and litigation and so on, because it just doesn't really feature in terms of the modern thinking of what people management looks like for me. I think we've come such a long way in terms of understanding our people and how we engage them best, and how we get the best out of them, and how we develop them in a way that is interesting and exciting, not the boring stuff about being the naysayer who stops everybody from doing all of the things that they want to do. So I'm sure there are stereotypes, I'm sure there are people who still live up to that, but I'd really like to think that as a profession we've very much moved on from that.
Great. On one of the other podcasts, Sarah Wright at REPL, she made them rebrand to the people department rather than the HR department, just to get rid of the stigma. So yeah, I can understand that one. And what advice would you have for others who are trying to get to where you've got to?
I would very much reach out, because I guess when we talk about a profession, a group of people and our vested interests, seeing people grow and develop and giving opportunities should be absolutely the core of our values. And I know it's something that I was very lucky to have people who spent time with me. They didn't have to invest in supporting me, guiding me, mentoring me, giving me opportunities and experiences. But I think as a profession we're incredibly good at being open, sharing. We absolutely love giving people the opportunity to get in touch, ask us questions, come and spend some time with us as a team. I mean, obviously the last few months have been a little bit challenging in that regard, but we've always had that open door approach to say that if somebody wants to learn about people management, wants to learn about human resources in the context of a commercial business, then we're just so open to share. And we've learned so much, and as I hope I can talk quite openly about, we've also made mistakes that I'm very happy to share, and to talk about what it's taken, the lessons learned, the pros, the cons, the pitfalls, the rewards that come with developing a career in HR, just to be so candid about it, to make sure that if this is of interest to you, that it is absolutely the right thing for you, because I'm sure it isn't for everybody, and we've all got an idea of what we think a career looks like and then the actual reality of how it plays out. So So I would say that reaching out, networking, just remembering that those people working in HR roles, HR teams are very much about sharing and giving insights and information, and to take advantage of that goodwill, because we want to see people succeed, and we want to pass on and share some of the opportunities and experiences that we've had.
Brilliant. I mean, that's sort of bringing us up to time. If anyone wants to reach out to you, can they do that, and what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, multiple ways. So my email address is michaelrabone@rickstein.com. I'm on LinkedIn as well, and I'm an occasional user of Twitter, but would very much welcome connections from anybody that would like to, if I can share anything in the way that others have shared with me that would help them to pursue improvement, their best companies, their individual development, then I'd be very welcome to that.
Great. Thank you very much, Michael, for giving us your time and the insights. It's great to hear that the Rick Stein Group has managed to get through the last few months and innovated. I hope you've enjoyed being on the show, and I hope the listeners have enjoyed this episode of the HR Champions podcast. Thanks everyone, and stay tuned for more episodes.